welcome to the Top Order podcast. It's been a record-breaking day at the Men's Cricket World Cup. Fastest century, largest margin of victory, most expensive bowling figures, most expensive World Cup over, maybe even the most amount of praise ever given to David Warner on a Top Order podcast episode. We'll have all of that and more coming up right after this. Okay, Baldy, going into this game, you said to me you had concerns over Australia's middle order. You were worried about Steve Smith's form and Australia's ability to pace their innings. Passive observers are going to look at this game and the scorecard and go, oh, yeah, it's only the Netherlands. But I think that does a massive disservice to both teams, actually, in this match. An emphatic win for Australia, a massive boost to their run rate. It's a result that suggests that they're right back in the mix of this World Cup. I think that's my monologue. I think I'm going to step back from the microphone and just let you take it now. Huge win for Australia.
Morning, team. Yes, the coffee glass is half full this morning. And, you know, look, Australia have taken care of business against the Netherlands. They've done, just about a 9 out of 10 job. They've done really, really well. All the things that we had hoped, or I had hoped that Australia would tick off against the Netherlands, they've ticked off, and then some more. And they started it by winning the toss and making what I think is an excellent decision in this World Cup to bat first.
Yeah, look, I mean, absolutely batting first, and I mean, that's a good place to start. David Warner, I mean, he goes into this innings now off the back of 100 against Pakistan, goes in, scores another 100. I mean, I said it up top, we're not usually quick to throw out the praise to David Warner, but Binksy, I'll give you the opportunity to come in and talk about what an innings this was. I mean, 50 off 40 balls, 100 off 91 balls, 4 consecutive fours off Aryan Dutt. What did you most enjoy about David Warner? That celebration, you always love that.
Look, credit where credit's due. I thought his innings, he was dropped early on, wasn't he, against Pakistan? And then obviously went on to get a really, really big 100. And I think, backing it up is the thing that's most impressive about this. I think easy potentially to, subconsciously take your foot off the gas in a game against one of the minnows in the tournament. But yeah, look, certainly his innings set the tone. They lost an early wicket, didn't they? So, the Netherlands, got into the game early on, but then, from then on, it really was pretty much plain sailing for the Aussies. I guess the Roller van der Merwe catch throughout the course of that innings. Look, I'm not debating that, it's not out. But I think that we've seen a real sea change in the way that's been adjudged over the course of the last sort of 6 to 12 months in world cricket. So a little bit of a talking point there. And then I think the other question I've really got for Baldy is just that, the balance of that Australian side. Travis Head, reportedly now fit and available for selection. Very, very difficult to move Mitch Marsh, I would have thought, from the top of the order, and clearly David Warner from the top of the order. It looks a little bit congested in that middle order with Smith and Labuschagne for Australia. So that would be my only question is, when everybody returns to fitness, and it's quite likely Australia are going to have a must-win game at some point. The way the table looks at the moment. It just looks a bit of a weird batting lineup with, Maxwell at 7, Cameron Green at 8, Pat Cummins at 9, who can bat, Mitchell Starc at 10, who can bat. Zampa's really your only genuine, guy who doesn't know which end of the bat to hold in that lineup. So be interested, to see whether or not Baldy thinks there'd be any changes for Australia as the tournament progresses. But yeah, credit to David Warner and Glenn Maxwell. You've seen the meme. He often goes missing when you most need him. I guess still some question marks around, his performance in a game where they're probably going to get across the line without that fantastic 100 from him as well. So there you go, Baldy. I've given you your half-empty cup.
Well, thank you for that. I'll refill my cup with some good news from the Australian middle order for a change. Stephen Smith and Marnus Labuschagne were points of concern going into this match against the Netherlands. Stephen Smith, I don't think it got past 30 or 40 in this World Cup. Certainly he's had a bit of a struggle so far. Marnus's problem was really around strike rate. So the thing that was very, very pleasing for me is that having lost an early wicket, Australia were able to maintain a little bit of momentum. They didn't try and go too hard at the Netherlands in the first 10 overs. I think they were 60 or 70 after 10. So they had plenty of momentum going their way to be able to build a partnership. And as it was, Smith and Warner put on 130 for the second wicket, which is a fantastic performance to get them to 2 for 160 in the 23rd, 24th over when Steve Smith was dismissed. What I really like about that is, A, that Steve Smith got a bunch of runs, which is great for his confidence. But then Marnus came in and got on with it. So the criticism of Marnus has so far been that his strike rate in this World Cup has been in somewhere in the high 60s, low 70s. But here, he got on with the job. He got 62 off 47, and he maintained Australia's impetus through to the 36th, 37th over when he was dismissed. So that was a really positive thing for Australia. Australia lose a couple of quick wickets, so Marnus goes, Inglis goes, Warner goes in the 39th over, and then all of a sudden we went from sort of 230 or 240 for 2 to 260 for 5. That's where Glenn Maxwell really stood up for me. And not just because he got 106 off 40, but he was only, and I use the air quotes advisedly, only 30 off 20. And so he didn't try and, Sikorsky helicopter the ball out of the park too much in his first 20 balls. He got in, he looked at I don't know if he looked at it, but it looked to me like he looked at the Heinrich Klaasen, David Miller kind of mould and said, okay, if I've faced 20 balls, I can get 60 off the next 20. And that's exactly what he did. 30 off 20 and then 100 off 40 to, near enough as makes no difference. So that was a terrific innings from him. I thought that, having put the reverse ramp sweep paddle over deep third man for 6 away early in his innings, he got himself in. And once he's in and his hand-eye is going, he can play that shot as well as anyone in world cricket, if not better. So that was the particularly pleasing thing for me, other than the fact that he ran out his partner in Cam Green, but he did get Australia to 400 for 8 at the end of the 50 overs. And then the rest of the game was a fait accompli from there. But we'll talk about the second half in a second.
That was a pretty amazing innings from Maxwell. I know, Binksy mentioned it before. Sometimes he does get criticised for going missing, but I think you made a great point there, Baldy, about how he kind of got himself in. And often you see Maxwell, he comes in, he did it the other day, didn't he? He came in and slogged at the first ball, hit it straight up in the air and got out. In this innings, he got himself in, and by the time he played he played I don't even know what you call them. They're almost left-handed shots. They're not even reverses by the time that he's hitting them so cleanly, because I was going to call it, he hit a reverse sweep, I guess it kind of is, where he's sort of almost flicking it off his legs as a left-hander over the boundary for 6. And then he plays that one that he goes to 50 with. And, you could hear Shane Watson in the background going, oh, that's ridiculous. And the superlatives just kept coming from there. It really was an amazing innings. And the way, he hits Buster Leader again, who obviously not had a great day out with the ball. Hits him for 6, 2 more consecutive 6s, I think, to bring up his 100. And it really was something special. Is that the key for Maxwell, Baldy? Does he just have to bat, like that throughout this innings? What is it about him that I suppose frustrates Australians so much when he's got so much quality and so much ability to win games?
Oh, it's the gulf between talent and performance, I think, that frustrates Australians so massively. And it's the thing that frustrated Australians about Mitchell Marsh for many years, in that there is this world-beating talent hidden within Maxwell and hidden within Mitchell Marsh, but we very rarely see it. And we saw it last night. We saw how good Glenn Maxwell can be. And the formula for Glenn Maxwell is a microcosm of the formula for Australia. Bat first, soak up 15 or 20 balls, get yourself in, and then, the ability to catch up is there. And it's there for most of those Australian batters. Cameron Green has it, Marcus Stoinis has it, David Warner has it, Mitchell Marsh has it. So that's the microcosm of Australia's success plan, I think, going forward in this World Cup, as it will be for South Africa. Bat first, get 350 or 400 with that batting lineup if they fire like they did last night. Okay, it remains to be seen whether they'll do it against a top-class, world-class bowling attack. But Australia did a really, really good job last night of getting themselves not only into this game, but into this tournament.
And Binksy, anything else you want to add on the Australian batting, or should we move to the bowling?
Now let's move on to the under 13 like bowling scorecard of that Australian bowling innings. Some crazy figures in there.
Yeah, well, what impressed you most? Because I mean, I said it at the top. I think a lot of people are going to look at the scorecard and go, okay, it's the Netherlands. It's a side that everyone expected would struggle in this World Cup. But I think the Netherlands have shown so far in these games that they've played. They obviously beat South Africa. They've been very hard to beat. They were smart. They've been smart throughout this tournament. I mean, they've got a lot of plans. You could see the way they opened the bowling today with 2 off-spin bowlers against David Warner and tried to exploit some weaknesses potentially that they had. But, when you get Australia pile 400 on the board and then go into this game, this next innings, this bowling innings, it could have been easy for them to let the game drift, right? But they've just gone out and they've picked up wicket after wicket, and 90 all out is a massive boost for their net run rate, Binksy.
Yeah, look, it is, and I think we're going to potentially see that net run rate conversation being very, very important for probably that final semi-final place. Hey, look, that's a bit of crystal ball. It might, it might not transpire that way, but it looks as if it could be quite congested in that part of the table. I'd be interested to get Baldy's views. I think, what's most impressive for me, and probably the thing that Australia will take away from this is, Adam Zampa struggled a little bit for form in recent times. Luckily, Baz de Leader has taken back the worst bowling international, one-day international figures. I think Mick Lewis held it before then Adam Zampa. It's now back gone to the Netherlands, so an Australian doesn't have the ignominy of holding that particular statistic. I also think getting a couple of poles out of Mitchell Marsh as well potentially helps Australia. So notwithstanding, obviously, the top of the bowling card, Stark, Hazlewood, Cummins, I don't think we've ever got any doubts about their quality. But I think what will be very pleasing for Australia is that Zampa's found a little bit of form, and Mitchell Marsh has chipped in. And look, you can only really describe it as a clinical bowling performance from the Aussies, and absolutely nailing that net run rate conversation as well.
Baldy, do you want to step in? Adam Zampa, I know you enjoy a bit of leg spin. You enjoy burgling the tail, but I think burgling the tail is maybe a bit harsh in that you asked for him to perform basically about 3 games ago, and since then he's got 4 for 3 for. So he's definitely back in form, as Binksy mentioned.
Yep, absolutely. So some very pleasing aspects to Australia's bowling and fielding performance. Australia, by and large, took their chances in the field. They took some good catches, which is particularly pleasing. The one that I really enjoyed was the Greg Inglis, the Josh Inglis catch down the leg side, the strangle. His footwork was immaculate to that catch. A lot of keepers would go late and just dive across. He took 2 steps and was able to take the ball between the legs through the middle of the gloves there. So that was particularly pleasing from a fielding perspective. I think Inglis also kept well to Zampa. There was a cut shot off the back foot, a little bit of turn and bounce, and Inglis was able to get his hands into the right position to take that chance. So from a fielding perspective, lots to like from Australia, and certainly a massive improvement from early on in the tournament, where there were questions asked, mostly by me, around Australia's preparation around their fielding. So that's been a really big improvement as far as their fielding is concerned. 3 parts to the bowling, 2 of them Binksy mentioned, that are particularly pleasing from an Australian perspective. The first one is that Mitchell Marsh, yes, came in and got a couple of wickets, particularly with the structure of Australia's all-rounders. We've got Marsh, we've got Green and/or Stoinis, and we've got Maxwell in that bowling department, and potentially Travis Head to come back into the side as well. So being able to get wickets from the 5th bowling option is particularly pleasing. The other thing that pleased me about Australia's bowling performance is we got wickets at the top of the order for the first time in the tournament since the India game. So we had 3 wickets in the power play. We had 4 wickets when De Leader was dismissed by Cummins in the 11th over, inside that first 10 or 11 overs. So for Australia, it's particularly pleasing that at the top of the order, even though the Netherlands were 50 at 10 overs or at 11 overs, Australia had picked up regular wickets through that spell, which is particularly pleasing. And then we'll talk about Adam Zampa. Yes, his form was a struggle early in the tournament. I think now in retrospect, it might have been a little bit of a fitness issue. He certainly looks like he's moving a little bit better in the field of late. And, for him to come in and get 4 wickets was particularly pleasing because he was landing his wrong-un. And I think for a leggy, being able to land your wrong-un consistently is a sign of a guy who's got lots of confidence, the ability to go in and try something like that. And for him to land a couple and get a couple of poles LBW with a wrong-un, even though it's a tail ender that's on the receiving end, and that's it being unkind probably to Rolla van der Merwe, that is a particularly pleasing outcome for me because it signals that Adam Zampa is back in a bit of form. He's willing to try some variations and he's landing them, which does the world of good for a leg spinner's confidence.
Oh yeah, he's got that wrong and going really, really nicely at the moment. The way he's done it the last few games, especially, and making batters look silly at times. And I think that's huge. We'll come to Binksy shortly to sort of look ahead to the next couple of days because there's a big few games up next for England and some big games in this tournament. But Baldy, I guess before we sort of move away from this game, how are you feeling about this Australian side and the Aussie chances now? Because, you mentioned it, briefly there that, a couple of games ago, you were quite harsh about the side. Everyone took shots, the players, the coaches. But with the passage of time, those first couple of games that Australia have lost, they're starting to look a bit better on paper. They've now dealt with 3 teams in a row very, very well. How are you all feeling? Is Australia back? Are they going to be a serious chance in this tournament?
They can be. They've taken care of business against Sri Lanka and the Netherlands, which they needed to do. And they needed to address some serious concerns around some of the aspects of their game, which by and large they've done over the course of the last 3 matches. So that's all to the good as far as Australia are concerned. What remains to be seen is in their next 2 matches against New Zealand and England is to whether they can take that and apply those improvements to their game against sides that will really test their mettle. New Zealand will test them because New Zealand will take the game deep. They won't be overawed by the occasion, and New Zealand are probably, if not the best side, then one of the best sides in the world of pacing their chase and understanding the job that needs to be done to win a game of ODI cricket. England are explosive. England are hurting at the moment in terms of the way that they've performed so far in this World Cup. They're going to have an opportunity to bounce back, and we'll talk about that shortly. But by the time that game comes against Australia on the 4th of November, England will be in a position where their World Cup is either gone and they're playing spoiler, or they're fighting for their lives and fighting for their chance to remain in the tournament. So Australia's performance in this World Cup really comes down to the next 2 games and whether or not they can apply the lessons that they've learned, the improvements that they've made, the improvements to preparation, middle order batting and top order bowling over the next couple of games and really test that against some quality opposition.
You've done a lovely job of segueing there, Baldy. We've got this next game tonight is England, Sri Lanka, and then a really huge couple of days coming up for the World Cup with Pakistan, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, and then England, India after that. So, really big for the tournament, but also massive for England. You mentioned it there with those. We've got those 2 games and then another one with Australia. Binksy, add anything else you want on this game and then take me through sort of how you're feeling about the next few days of this tournament.
Yeah, look, I think I'll use the age-old adage, let's not focus on the past. So that, this game is now gone. I think that, that's in the win column for Australia. It really is, of course, the next 2 or 3 days that could massively shape this tournament. I think realistically, we're looking for 6 into 4, aren't we? I think Netherlands, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, it sounds harsh to say, but, you'd look at the fixtures that they've got coming up. They're probably not going to, finish in the top 4. I think the benefit for Australia is they're going to have a mulligan, aren't they? They've got England and New Zealand next up, and they can afford to lose one of those games, even if England get themselves back into the tournament with a win tonight. So I think that's going to be really, really key. Look, there's just so many different permutations that are flying around there. So, I really do think that, when we start to look down that fixture list, we've got some pretty tasty fixtures that come a lot later in the tournament as well. But the next 2 or 3 days really, really huge. I'm going to be really keen to see how England back up. If you look at it from a a logistical perspective, they've flown in Bryden Cast. I think he arrived yesterday. There's almost no chance that he plays a part in this tournament unless there's an injury. He's not got any miles in the legs. He's here as a replacement, obviously, for Reece Topley. For some inexplicable reason, we decided to, bowl first in 45-degree heat. Let's see how the bowlers back up. But they've almost made a call that Chris Wokes is not selectable after his early season form. So when you kind of look at it like that, England are picking from 13 for this game against Sri Lanka, who could be pretty dangerous in these conditions. So yeah, really, really big, really big couple of days, I think, in the context of this tournament. Look, I just hope that England do manage to win this game tonight, because I really want to see that Australia-New Zealand game on Saturday have plenty on it. Would be my view over the course of the next 3 or 4 days.
Baldy, anything else you want to add before I take us out?
Yeah, Adam's hit the nail on the head. There's some really, really delicious fixtures coming up for a lot of these contender sides in that sort of 3 through 5 area. You have a look at even South Africa's run home. They've got Pakistan, New Zealand, India coming up in their next 3 matches. That will tell us a lot about their bona fides and their credentials in terms of a semi-final contender. New Zealand have Australia, South Africa, Pakistan. So all of the contenders are going to play each other over the next couple of fixtures. I just wanted to pick up on the run here for Afghanistan over the next 3 games. They've got Sri Lanka, who I think they would fancy themselves to really go at in this tournament. They've got the Netherlands, who, yes, upset South Africa, but have been humbled by Australia and are now 1-4 in the tournament. I feel like Afghanistan have got some winnable games coming up, and they could be potentially going into the game against Australia 3 wins for the tournament at that point. If they split that series against Sri Lanka and the Netherlands, 1 win, 1 loss, that's a really, really positive tournament for Afghanistan going forward. And they'll be nipping at the heels of the teams like Pakistan, England, if they get their tournament back on track. So I think that of the 4 nations that Adam mentioned as not really being in contention for the semi-finals, Afghanistan has emerged as potentially the best of those sides, notwithstanding the Netherlands' terrific victory over South Africa earlier on in the tournament.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Afghanistan's not out of it. If they can win these next couple of games that they've got, then they've got basically going to have to beat. They would have to beat one of, I think, Australia or South Africa at the end, which is obviously going to be a tough ask. But they've shown what they can do so far in this tournament. So yeah, not out of it at all. But we will see how it all plays out in the next few days. A couple of massive days ahead in the World Cup. I'm going to be away for the next 4 days from these top-ordered daily shows, and I couldn't have really picked some worse days to be away. Yeah, mouth-watering encounters against sides that we all sort of expect are going to be in the semi-final mix. But Baldy, Binksy and Raj will take you through all of those days and everything that's going on. Please do continue to keep liking and subscribing and commenting and all those good things. It really does make a big difference. I know I say that every single episode, but it is very much true. And apart from that, hope you've enjoyed today, an emphatic Australian win, and enjoy the rest of your day or evening or whatever it is in whatever part of the world you're in, and we'll see you all again tomorrow.